are just the basics. Um, and of course, besides my public health area, I have had the opportunity to take a few courses, free courses through WHO during this lockdown and COVID period. And one of the courses I did was terminal cleaning. And terminal cleaning is a medical or a hospital facility term for cleaning a room that is suspected or known to have either bloodborne or communicable type diseases affecting patients who may have been in that room, or also used in pre-op situation, post-op situations, but very applicable to a COVID situation for isolation in our hotel rooms. And whether you choose to go to route to get your own training or using a third party, again, given the information that we have, I don't think a lot of us are going to be doing terminal cleaning. But I think where medical profession is concerned, if you suspect it, you have to make sure you deal with it as if there may be infection. And then secondly, for the hoteliers and the tour operators, I just kind of lost my thought. How's that? Went right over my head. But again, I think statistically we're not going to have a lot of cases from our tourists. Probably more likely to have staff members. And I know there were a few concerns raised yesterday in one of the webinars about staff getting sick. And again, as we know, so many people, especially younger people, are asymptomatic. I do know people in their 60s who have been asymptomatic and tested positive. So you never know. And as our director, Dr. Manzanero, has said, right now, if we're not living with somebody, we have to make sure that we practice proper cleanliness, hand washing, mask wearing, social distancing, and that means at work, and that means socially in our communities until we are able to combat this. And of course, we take all of those principles and we promote them through the gold standards that BTB has given us here. So I'll go into a little bit more detail now. Look, you'll be able to see a lot of communications and links in the chat room. BTB technical support, Ms. Varsha Clark and some of her team are in the room with us, and they will be providing links as we discuss them throughout the rest of the webinars. So, utilize those links. Most of my stuff, like I shared yesterday, are screenshots. They're not really links you can click on, but you can take a screenshot of my screen and look those up later. So I really hope that helps you. Again, I wish all of you a pleasant good morning. Today's topic is cleaning and sanitation. And I'm going to move right into the shared screen. We haven't added a whole lot of people. We're really close to 600 people in the room. And I'm now going to share my screen. And as I mentioned, I won't be able to see your chats anymore. BTV is going to help us. And I know that there are a few other people in the room who have been very helpful with answering questions as well. That's great. I know some of you have taken several of the classes. You've done a lot of your research yourself. So we have a very diverse group with 600 industry people in the room at the same time. We all have to be patient, sensitive to the fact that we all have a very wide variety of experience and knowledge, not just in hospitality, but also with COVID-19. But the information is free. BTB has prioritized the educational process for the gold standard health and safety guidelines. So our first screen is pretty much the two document front pages for enhanced tour operator guidelines and enhanced hotel and restaurant guidelines. Keep in mind, we have been getting a ton of questions about taxis, about restaurants. If you're an independent restaurant and you're not directly affiliated with a hotel, no, you can't be gold standard certified. But of course, please keep in mind that you taking this course, having your own protocols, utilizing these guidelines in your business, not only optically for us citizens who may patronize your restaurant will see that you're taking great care to prevent further spread of COVID-19 and a step in professional enhancement for your operation, but it's also for the visitor as well. We will see a more cohesive approach and a unified approach to the protocols and guidelines to combat COVID-19. So I encourage you to get involved in these guidelines. And at some point, I have mentioned, it is possible that we do have a certification program for the independent businesses that are not regulated by BTB. BTB's focus has really been on those regulatory industry professionals in hospitality and tour guiding and tour operators. Also said, the tour guides are kind of lopped into the tour operator guidelines. So these are very applicable. Whenever you can get tour guides involved, please get them involved. If you're a tour operator or you have a friend who is a tour guide, the more information, the better. One of the principles of guiding that we teach in tour guiding and Belize is the continuous search for more knowledge, expertise, and skills for guiding. It adds not only to your professional development, but also the experience you give to our customers. This is just one example. And whether you're a birding specialist or an expert diver, dive master, instructor, education is a lifelong journey. Don't ever let your gray hair hold you back, right? So today's conversation is going to be about cleaning and sanitation. And as I've said in the past, a lot of our cleaning and sanitation fundamentals, especially in food and beverage, housekeeping and hospitality, haven't changed that much. They really haven't. We talk a little bit more about enhanced cleaning. We talk about a heightened sense of cleaning. We've certainly, in hospitality globally, there is a lot of talk about high touch areas, and very, very important. And to me, I think one of the most important things, especially with this topic, is the safety and proper application of any type of cleaning materials. And the safety, when I mean the safety, I mean the safety for you who may be using the chemicals, applying the chemicals, mixing the chemicals. And secondly, people who may interact with the environment that you're sanitizing or cleaning. So important for us to understand safety first. And we will go through some very, very basic guidelines in this respect, but keep in mind, I'm kind of covering the surface of some of the protocols that should be taking place when it comes to cleaning and sanitation. As I've mentioned in the last two webinars, I like to feature the director's page because she highlights the resources that were utilized to put these guidelines together. These just didn't appear out of the sky. There was a lot of work by local professionals and agencies, public health, CARPA, CDC, AHLA, etc. So there was a lot of work and thought. These are pretty much guidelines that are universal right now, sake of the pandemic. So very important. With the 9-point checklist, I've kind of highlighted number 4. to implement the enhanced cleaning and sanitation, so applicable to every aspect of our business. And it doesn't matter if you're a dive shop, which diving industry has always had their standards for disinfecting and hygiene of their equipment, a very technical activity. And of course, even zip lining and some of those activities, not to mention our hotels and restaurants. So some of these standards have already been in place. Some of you may say this is repetitive or common sense, but remember, if common sense was a flower, not all of us have that flower in our gardens. So let's move forward. The objectives today, of course, like every day, is I've got my my friend over here. Oh, sorry about that, cat. You'll be okay. My cat just kind of tried to take over my desk here. But really, our goal throughout all of this training is to build confidence, not only in with our associates, employees, or team, but with our guests, and of course, our business partners. And education and communications is imperative for our success. But today, hopefully we're going to understand better the monitoring of health and safety protocols for cleaning and disinfecting, which if you've gone through the application, you'll realize that there is a lot more accountability that we need to have in terms of keeping track of every area of our cleaning and sanitation program. Explaining the importance of cleaning and the appropriate steps. And remember, these steps aren't necessarily new. In food and beverage, not a whole lot has changed. We're just emphasizing a little bit more. Some of the principles today. Describe the chemical use and safety protocols. Cannot say enough about that. You know, do your staff have safety data sheets for every chemical that they use in executing their jobs? Big question there. We're going to go into a little bit more detail on that. Understanding the differences in chemicals on the market. We're gonna go into a little bit more detail there. And of course, as you know, if you've gone through the guidelines already, you'll see that there are a number of suppliers in Belize that that have a variety of different chemicals. Are we using the right chemicals? Are they certified chemicals? Are they good for the environment? Are they safe for us to use? Some of those principles we will cover. Describe environmentally friendly products in Belize and internationally. Understand terminal cleaning, which I briefed on already, in a quarantine room. In understanding the BTB's and Ministry of Tourism's application process and documentation of the gold standard certification. And finally, just a little subcategory there, checklists should be detailed by all areas or departments. So when you're going through the application and it asks you for a checklist of high touch areas, if it's a room, you know, you've got your light switches, your remote controls for your AC, the television, you've got door handles, anywhere the door jamb, desk surfaces, water faucets, all of those things would be a part of your checklist, and it should be detailed. When you turn in your application, they want to see that. If it's a vehicle or if it's a boat, you know, do a checklist that say, okay, like on a boat, I always say boats, everything is a high touch area, because if you stand up in a boat, you're always touching something to keep your balance. And unless you're somebody who lives on the boat all the time, you probably move around pretty good. But you notice that your customers are touching everything, the gunnels, the seat, the center console. But all of those things are high touch areas. Anything, your bimini and the bimini braces and the ropes that hang down off, the straps that hang down off the bimini. Those are all examples of high touch items that should be listed in detail. And essentially, BTB envisions that that's also a training piece of collateral information that you can use to help train your team and remind them, right? So moving through, we need to conquer this pathogen. Just like other pathogens, this is a magnified view of our lovely coronavirus. I like to describe the virus kind of like a Berber. And I don't know the Spanish term for Berber. Someone told it to me, but I don't forget it already. But those little crowns on top are kind of like that little Berber seed from the grass that sticks to your pants and sticks to your shoes and sticks to your, it helps bind to the cell and then enters our cells. So with cleaning process, and the reason I emphasize this, just with the first step of cleaning, whether it's a detergent or a soap, it helps break down those lipid protein barnacles or you know, Berbers, and it makes it more difficult for them to bind with our cells. So not only does cleaning remove some of the pathogens that could be there, but it also helps kind of neutralize them, but not completely, as we obviously know, and hence cleaning is just the first step, and then disinfecting. So we're going to continue on that model. And I love to show this slide, so because this is something that's been around in food and beverage for a while, but prohibit employees in coming to work, strict hand washing practices, and strong procedures in cleanliness and sanitation surfaces. These are just common, iconic food and beverage, food safety principles that have been around for a long time, and we're now seeing it kind of surface in all areas of our work. Keeping yourself healthy, so important. And I could do a whole talk on keeping yourself healthy personally. You know, we know that the virus is very opportunistic, and if we have any predisposed health issues, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, diabetes, if we're a smoker, there are things that elevate our risk if we were to contract the SARS-CoV-2 virus and end up with COVID-19. So great time for us to get healthy, adding a little bit of exercise, whether it's just walking down the street. Instead of eating fried jacks 5 days a week, eat fried jacks twice a week, and having more, you know, fresh vegetables. And of course, you know, having surrounded by a loving family and a healthy, happy environment in your neighborhood always helps. Dr. Martinez sent me this yesterday, and I said, I'm going to put it in there. What are your hands holding? We can't see those pathogens, those germs, the viruses, the bacteria, protozoas, the fungi. We can't see those things. But because our hands are responsible for the majority of the spread of illnesses, because of our hands touching these surfaces and then touching our mouth, touching our nose, picking our nose, touching our eyes, it just makes total sense that our hands are the thing that cause the spread so much. Now, that doesn't mean, and as we know more, COVID-19, like other flus and viruses, it's airborne. And yes, we could inhale it, and that's why we need to wear masks and so forth. We could expel it, and droplets could go all over. But hopefully, with mask wearing and a unified approach, we are going to be we're going to reduce the possible incidence of droplets kind of being spread around. And then, of course, acting on a regimented personal hygiene method. And I'm not going to get into the hand washing sequences, but you'll see anywhere from 5, 6 steps to 11 steps. I think CDC has an 11-step diagram. They're all essentially the same thing. I think Dr. Martinez probably has, you know, the 11 step that he's been trained on. But the important thing, as I've mentioned in one of the other webinars, is to make sure you follow the proper sequence, and starting with rinsing your hands. If we were to go back here, and you can see the writing of different pathogens on the hand. I don't think the individual, when they wash this off of their hand, they would just put soap on there. They would rinse their hand first. And of course, rinsing first helps remove some of the debris, helps remove some of the germs that could be on your hands, and then using a proper soap and properly, you know, getting under your nails and between your fingers and, you know, your palms and right up your wrists. So important. And, you know, not all of us have a sink and soap everywhere. So having a hand sanitizer available, again, is going to be our first step to cleaning and sanitation. And then, of course, afterward. I think I've shared this with you already, but a face covering when cleaning and sanitizing or disinfecting is so important. And there is a lot of science out there on the proper mask to wear or face covering. Duke University, I think I mentioned, just did an interesting study. And I know a lot of us, especially on the water, we like to use, even a lot of our guides like to use that buff that kind of goes over our head and face, and it protects us from the sun. Those have actually been known to be the worst type of face covering. Of course, if you're out in the sea, you're less likely to be exposed, but they also, because your vapor and it's so snug to your face, the vapors do expel from that mask. Some people have said, you know, Jim, I double my buff, so they double it up, and that's a good practice. The more layers you have, the better. You could even put a coffee filter in there to in your double layer, and then you get a triple layer. So there are different modifications. You know, is it CDC approved? No, it's not. But any face covering is better than no face covering, right? It shouldn't restrict your breathing. Because I've been doing a lot of talking over the last few months, and even some live lecturing, I find that the cloth multi-layer masks are very, very difficult to use for extended periods of time. And it restricts my breathing. I sweat a lot more. So a proper N95 mask that has that cone allows me to speak easier. I don't get any chafing around the lips or anything. And of course, I always use those when I'm in public areas or public transport, flying or whatever. But the multi-layers are really important. And for those of us who have the cloth masks, washable and dryable, the coffee filter ones like mine are, you can just take those out and throw them away, right? We're not supposed to touch the mask. As soon as we touch the mask, those germs that we may have are on our hands, and then we could be touching and spreading things all over, right? If we do touch our mask, we probably should sanitize our hands right away. But we need to treat our mask as if it's contaminated. In the food and beverage side of things, if you work in a restaurant, people may want to leave their masks on their table when they sit down at your table. You may offer them a Ziploc plastic bag or a little paper bag they can put it in, but that should be part of your protocol. You do not want people's masks to be sitting on your dining room table. And of course, if they've already done it, you may offer to sanitize their table for them, you know, with some type of sanitation wipe, and, you know, avoiding any discomfort or anything with the customer. Just offering is a nice gesture. Protective eyewear getting into the use of chemicals for cleaning and sanitation, like the mask, like proper sanitation of the hands. It's really important to make sure that we're protected. And eyewear doesn't just help us with proper, possible airborne pathogens or diseases. It also helps us with the possibility of mist or spray of chemicals getting in our eyes and irritating our eyes. And then, of course, if you get anything in your eyes like that, the first thing you want to do is rub your eyes. So having proper eyewear for your team is really important to avoid, damage, to avoid discomfort, and possible illness with the virus. There are different kinds, and as we've discussed, when you're looking at the safety data sheet, it will tell you if you should be wearing gloves. It would tell you whether you should wear a goggle like this or just protective eyewear. So make sure you keep that in mind. The safety data sheet we're gonna talk about again. And right now, I'm just gonna focus again a little bit on the cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. Those are real terms that have different meanings. The sanitizing and disinfecting are probably a little more similar, used interchangeably, but in the medical business, there are different types of cleaners that are prescribed for different levels of risk. And the sanitizing and disinfecting kind of go on a similar scale of how much is the sanitizer or disinfecting going to kill or eliminate pathogens or microbial, the other term is microbial pathogens that are in our environment. So it's the same thing in food and beverage. We need to eliminate those threats, whether it's bacterial or virus or fungi, so important. But disinfecting and sanitizing are not the same. A lot of people like to say that when you disinfect, you're eliminating pathogens, and possibly not all. It may be very specific based on the disinfectant, but 99.9% of the time. Whereas sanitizing, a lot of times you see on bottles, it's 99%. So that 0.9% is not there a lot of times. But again, there are so many different products. There are so many different chemicals that are used, and they use these terms interchangeably. They use them separately, but they don't always mean the same thing when it comes to the specific risk of a virus or different kinds of viruses or bacteria and different kinds of bacteria, right? And again, some of those pathogens or microbial pathogens are mutatable. So some of these disinfectants, as we know, don't always work with every kind of bacteria. They don't always work with every kind of virus. So we need to learn these things. When we're selecting chemicals for cleaning agents, detergents, or disinfectants, we need to consider these areas. The intended use. If you're a dive shop, you're going to be very specific. You have specialized equipment with synthetic O-rings, material that if you use the wrong disinfectant and chemicals, it could deteriorate that surface or that item. So you need to be very specific about what you use. And very important, same thing like in a kitchen. The chemical you would use on a food prep table and cutting boards would be very different than what you may use in railings and on other areas that shouldn't have food on them. So the intended use is really important in selecting the appropriate chemical or detergent. And the efficacy, Does it kill the microorganism? Does it kill the pathogen? How effective is it? Excuse me. Um, uh, you know, how is it for the local environment? What is the recommended contact time? Time is so important for the use of certain chemicals. I know Dr. Martinez will get into a little bit with some of the products that he offers that we will see, but it's really important when you're looking at the usage sheet or the safety data sheet that you understand. A lot of people like to spray something down and then wipe it off. And a lot of these chemicals, you'll notice that should sit there for a little while. And so it can really activate and it could really attack those microorganisms, microbial pathogens, or germs, you know, however you want to call it. Acceptability, does it damage the surface? And I kind of talked about that for the intended use, but does it oxidize the surface? You know, there are some chemicals we'll talk about. You know, you don't want to use peroxide on granite, you know, in your kitchen granites. You know, they say that it can discolor the granite. There are certain chemicals you don't use on stainless steel. I've known people who just love to use muriatic acid. You know, it kills everything, but it'll probably kill the surface of everything too, and damage your equipment, and it's certainly not good for the environment. And so the proper use and the acceptability based on the surfaces that you're cleaning, and then also, does it leave a film or does it have an unpleasant smell? And of course, you know, those types of optics are very important in our business. If it leaves some kind of film, even though you know it's okay, but it just may look dirty because of the film. And of course, having an unpleasant smell, you may chase your customers away. Safety, so important. I can't talk enough about it. And I think we could do a whole session on the use of chemicals and the safe use of chemicals, the proper PPEs, the proper application. So for those of you who have chemicals that need to be mixed, I highly recommend you have one person do it. And if you have a stores keeper, or, you know, make sure your measuring devices, your PPEs are all in place. And if you can just have one person mixing the chemicals and they're properly trained, it's going to be much safer for everybody else who uses them. Cost and availability is really important. I know the cost of disinfectants for you is for all of us is so important. And is it available? If you're using products that are not available or inconsistently available, you're going to have problems. You're going to run out, and, you know, so you've got to make sure, you know, put your supplier to task and make sure that they keep an adequate inventory that you have accessibility to throughout your year. It does not mean you have to keep a bunch of inventory unless, of course, you're getting it from abroad. And that may be the case for you. And I do know some people who import their own. And when we talk a little bit more about some of the chemicals, I'll get into that. I just stopped my video there for a second. I had to stand up. And anyways, the volume, is it available in the amount needed based on the facility? So, you know, you have to look at the cost and availability, and you have to look at the volume in terms of where you're located, how much you use, and of course, how much your supplier keeps. We're kind of rolling through this fast. And that's what I want to do, because I really want to get Dr. Martinez in here. Dr. Martinez, you're standing by, but if I say anything here that you want to help correct at the end, please feel free, and we can go back to this. But cleaning with detergents, soaps, degreasers, this is probably one of the most critical steps, is to clean first. And I know they not only harp on this in food and beverage, but they harp on this in the medical profession as well, because you're dealing with different medications, different chemicals, a variety of microbial pathogens, germs. You've got to make sure you clean the surfaces first. Make sure that there's nothing on the surface. And again, it doesn't matter if you've got scales and fish guts on your fishing rod, or you've got crumbs and gravy on your dining room tables. All of that should be cleaned first with some type of detergent, soap or degreaser, that before you actually disinfect. That stage is the most important stage. And then you put all the other principles together for disinfecting. Now, when...
If I can add there, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Indeed, cleaning is very important, because if you don't properly clean, the organic and fatty substances that are on surfaces can affect the ability to disinfect of various legitimate disinfectants. So the best way you can guarantee that you are properly clean, meaning that you are removing between 97 to 98% of what is on the surface, is using legitimate microfiber cloth. And that has to be microfiber cloth that comes with some sort of testing or certification from EPA. So if you use a legitimate microfiber cloth, you are picking up between 97 and 98% of what is on the surface, including microorganisms. And that is very important for the next step, which is the application of your sanitizer or your disinfectant. So you can't use any old cloth. It has to be legitimate microfiber cloth.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Martinez. But as you said, if you do leave any type of matter or dirt on the table, it could make the next step obsolete. And especially with bacteria and viruses that may be connected to that dirt, if we leave dirt on the surface, it could leave a growth of those microbial pathogens. And then secondly, Dr. Martinez's point was using the right cloth, using the right applicators to clean the surfaces. And there is certainly an industry thrust that the microfiber cloths, and there are different types of microfiber cloths for different usages and applications. But the microfiber is exactly what it is. It's this fine fiber that picks up, along with the chemicals, detergents and stuff, soaps, it picks up microbial organism within the cloth. So not just any old rag would do. Having appropriate cloths for the appropriate surfaces and applications are very important. And Dr. Martinez, we'll get you to talk a little bit about those microfiber cloths a little bit later as we go down this list. With disinfectants, as we know, alcohol disinfectants are the preferred. There are different type of alcohol disinfectants. What is being recommended are the ones that have 70% alcohol. As we learned a few months ago, there were some alcohol-based, I think it was the methanol-based hand disinfectants that are not good for us. And my understanding is that the Ministry of Health and Customs took back a lot of those products, and they do not allow them to be shipped in anymore. They've been confiscated and stuff at the port. So that alcohol, normally that's going to kill the pathogens or the microbial stuff on your hands immediately. You just need to make sure that you're applying it and using it and wiping it in the proper sequence, as we will learn later on in another area. The hydrochlorides, also known as the sodium chloride or the bleaches. There are a variety of those that are available, but of course the most common and the easiest, but they're also high oxidizers. There are a lot of good things about the hydrochlorides, but there are a lot of negative effects as well. They're certainly not good for the environment. They're not necessarily good for us. They must, like any other chemical, they must be used properly. But again, they linger in the environment. They get into our water system, and they're just not typically good for us. But they're very inexpensive, very easy to mix. Now, for those who are using the plain bleach, I know this is something that's a pet peeve to a lot of people, but you've got to make sure the right percentage of the sodium chloride or hydrochloride is used. With imported bleaches, it'll tell you what the percentage is. And I think the preferred is around 5 or 6 or 7. And then from there, you can find the proper mixtures. CDC has the proper mixtures for basic disinfecting. And I think it's 1 tablespoon for a gallon of water for a Clorox bleach that is between 5 and 7%, something like that. So again, very important. More does not mean better, because it could be very harmful to you and very harmful to the environment, very corrosive for surfaces that you use it on, and of course could stain soft porous material as well. So you may want to do a little bit more research if you're somebody that does use the sodium hydrochlorides, whether it's for your diving or your food and beverage, a pre-soak in the kitchen with dirty dishes, whatever. Very important to understand the proper use of that. And you may not get a proper SDS sheet for stuff that you mix like that, but for your staff's sake, you may want to make sure you make one up. And again, like I recommended before, make sure 1 person is using it. Another setback, and a lot of people don't know this, for the sodium hydrochlorides or the Clorox bleach, is they don't last long once you've mixed them with water. And most things you'll read will tell you that you don't use over 24 hours. Normally, the original bottle stores very long, and one of the reasons they keep Clorox in a white bottle is to avoid any sun contact. The sun deteriorates the proper disinfecting qualities of bleach, and it kind of renders it inactive. So, you know, you shouldn't be storing bleach, you know, a year's collection. It's readily available. And again, there are dates on the bottle, expiration dates on the bottle. I know people with the local Clorox producers and chlorine producers, they don't have a lot of the international regulations. They don't have expiration dates. They don't tell you, you know, the percentage of the sodium hydrochlorides. And, you know, they may be, you know, cheaper, but for safety purposes, you want to make sure you're doing things the right way. And, you know, if you do want to support a local producer and you're going to buy that local bleach, maybe what you do is you try to find out who it is and call them and find out how they rate those chlorides, what the percentage is, and you know, make sure you're using it the right way. The percentage may be too low, and it may render the disinfecting inadequate for the actual use. So very important there. The hydroxyl groups, or the phenolics, one of the oldest disinfecting chemicals, been around for a long, long time. It can be dangerous, but the phenolics now are used in combination of some of the other chemicals that we're going to talk about, and we go down this list. Not real common. Trying to think. They're a sugar and alcohol kind of chemical based. They're used in like mouthwashes and there are other applications. But a lot of times they're used with the quaternary ammonia, which is the next one. Again, it's kind of a dated chemical, but I know that there are still, if you read about it, there are still some hospitals that use it. But the way chemists are now, they're mixing a lot of these things. And the next one here, the quaternary ammonia compounds, are also used in conjunction with other chemicals now. Those are probably the most widely used, the quaternary ammonia compounds. And again, there are different varieties, different mixtures of those. And again, when you're using anything that says quat on it, you should make sure you're looking at the safety data sheet every time. Make sure you're using it the right way. Make sure that it's stored the right way, and you know, all the things that we were talking about. The hydrogen peroxides, again, those we all know what hydrogen peroxide and that little brown bottle. Those two are affected by sun. They're affected when you mix them with water or other chemicals. So, but they are a huge part of sanitation now. There are some companies now that the hydrogen peroxide base with acetic acid combination makes a hydroxyl acetic acid, a new compound. That is a new chemical that's being used in the medical profession. It's used in the food preparation with meats and stuff like that. And I know that they're doing a strong push with some of the companies, and those are all FDA approved, tested chemicals, HISEP tested with some of the new peroxide. I forget. It's the new chemical when you mix the acetic acid and the peroxyl acetic acid. Yeah. PAA, something like that. But those are widely used. There's one company that I know that imports it, and for their hotel, and they're using it in food and beverage. There are applications for their ice machines and for use of disinfectants. They have a variety of products. They say that they work well and they are not mutant resistant for microbial pathogens. So it's kind of a new technology that's kind of taking off right now with the hydrogen peroxide. We do have a local producer who uses the hydrogen peroxide base, eco-friendly, and they promote this heavily, and they have different concentrations of it. Although not FDA approved, certified, because they do the mixing in country. As opposed to BioSafe. I think that's the company that does the acetic acid hydrogen peroxide mix. It is a very environmentally friendly. When it's not activated, it just basically turns into oxygen and water. So again, it doesn't last too long, but I think the acid kind of gets into the cell, and then the hydrogen peroxide just kind of oxidizes, the pathogen. So kind of like a real bomb explosion going off. Some of the other products which we've highlighted in other webinars are the ones through, they say they're green and they're using chemicals, limonene, lactic acid, citric essence, and they claim that they are acid bacteria and microbial. So there are products out there. All of these products, I don't know about the phenolics, but all of these products are variations, mixtures of them are available in the lease. The quaternary ammonias, the hydrogen peroxides, you'll find them in Lysol, in other products that are widely used. And of course, before we get on Dr. Martinez again, the safety data sheet is so important. Make sure whatever you're using in all of your departments, all of your areas, whether it's a hotel or whether you're a dive shop, a tour operator, make sure that you have your safety data sheet on one of your checklists, on the back side of one of your checklists, or for each chemical that is being used. And we're using the proper PPEs. So important, so important as we move forward. This is just a rough outline, but there are 6 steps to disinfect. And the first one is have your SDS sheet, check the label, make sure all of your staff, no matter what their first language is, you make sure that the checklist and everything is in the appropriate languages. But checking the labels, the SDS sheets, and approvals, reading the directions of the usage, and then, as you know, Dr. Martinez and I have said, to pre-clean the soiled surfaces first. And when you add a microfiber cloth, you are removing so much more of the microbial pathogens, the germs, the viruses, the bacteria, when you clean properly first, right? And then 4, following the contact time. I said that already. When you read the directions, you know the application properly, you will know how much time for the disinfecting stage that you need to leave that on the surface before you wipe it. Or in some cases, they may say, we're just gonna let this dry on the surface because it's safe for someone to touch. Sanitizing your hands before and after the use of chemicals and wearing the proper PPEs is so important. And that should be a part of your SDS. You know, do I need eyewear? Do I need a mask? We should be wearing a mask anyways. But all of those little details should be a part of your SDS for the proper PPEs, disposable gloves, or reusable rubber gloves. And then storing the chemicals in a safe place. Most chemicals will tell you no direct sunlight, even if they're in a non-see-through container. They still don't like heat and they don't like direct sunlight. But making sure they're safe from the wrong person grabbing them. Obviously, with food handlers or serve safe, they always talk about storing chemicals on lower shelves and making sure that, you know, no chemicals are around food where it could be dripped or spilled or anything on your food surfaces or direct onto food. So really important. And wash your hands before and after. I've kind of highlighted some of the areas on a label. First, indication for use of disinfectants and hemodialysis equipment. It just kind of gives you a rundown at the top, the first lines, and they're in different, you know, languages. disinfectant and descaling solution for hemodialysis equipment. You know, obviously medical equipment. That's what this chemical is for. Number two, let's see, it shows you the compound or the chemicals that are in there. And I don't know the name of this chemical, but this is basically the hydrogen peroxide type chemical that I talked about, the BioSafe product. It's got the acetic acid mixed with the peracetic acid, and of course the hydrogen peroxide. But it shows you the active ingredients. Very important for you to know what those ingredients are. And then 3 and 4, health warnings. It could cause irritation. 4, it tells you what it's good for. Bacteria, sporicides, viruses, and then it shows you some of the viruses that are kind of listed there, whether they're an envelope virus, a non-envelope virus. HIV, I think, is an envelope virus. So probably good for the coronavirus. I'm only guessing. But really, really important. And then 6, the quantity, how much is in the container, expiration date, manufacturer's date. With the Clorox and other chemicals, especially bleach, if it's been sitting on the shelf over a year, if you see the manufacturing date, you know, was a year or more before, it's probably no good. Don't buy it. But the dilution instructions are so important. How do you mix it, and so forth. This is a slide that I think, from the EPA. I think it's the EPA website, and how to find the registration number. This diagram is inside the booklet, and I think it's a contribution from Ecolab, but it's in the guidelines, the gold standard guidelines, and it helps you find the registration number. I know you can go right to the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and you can look up these companies, you can look up the chemicals, and they give you a lot of information, whether it's approved or not. Dr. Martinez's chemicals and the company that he represents, 3M, they really highlight the fact that they are all EPA approved, CDC approved, and OSHA approved. There are so many different international agencies that approve those chemicals and the 3M products for disinfecting. Wow, Dr. Martinez, I hope you're ready here soon. We've got over 700 people in the room. It's actually the largest audience that I've noticed since we've started. And I'm just going to finish up on the surfaces and some of the things you mentioned and I've mentioned. And these are just kind of basic food and beverage type things, but cleaning the surface first, the upper left-hand side, and then of course using the right disinfectant on the surfaces. And you know, you see the push for the door, and you see the handle for the door. Those are examples of high touch areas. More examples would be the light switches, the doorknobs, your telephone. You know, if you're sitting around eating lunch and you know, your telephone screen has stuff on it, you probably need to sanitize that screen. And of course, anyone who's sharing a computer, sharing a telephone at work, all of that kind of stuff is high touch areas. The credit card machine should be sanitized frequently as well. And you know, the virus can live on plastic, can live on glass, paper, cardboard, wood, steel, surgical gloves. Remember, those disposable gloves, those are dirty. And if you're going to be handling dirty surfaces, dirty objects, and then, you know, going and touching something clean, you've got to change your gloves, sanitize your hands, and put on new gloves. Something that's really changed in food and beverage, it's not just the tabletop we clean anymore, it's any touch surface, the chair, underneath the table, the armrests on the chair, all of that stuff. And you know, if we're sanitizing properly, guests are going to see it. Really important from an optics standpoint that all of us are following the same procedures, doing the same thing, and it will build so much confidence in our customers. Again, you know, handling credit cards, handling swipe cards for POS systems, and condiments on the tables, the flowers, the salt and pepper shakers. You know, a lot of us who have had the training, they're advocating to remove everything on the table and set it on the table when guests have sat down. Those are some of the new industry standards. Whether it's a salt and pepper shaker, whether it's a Maria Sharp's pepper sauce or Hot Mama's pepper sauce, we've got to make sure that we sanitize properly. Menus, disposable menus, our garbage containers, some of the applications. Some people are using the bombas there on the left. It's got a pressure pump on the left-hand side there. Obviously, indoors, you don't want to use those bombas that are gas operated or motor operated, because you'd be putting exhaust in your rooms. They're noisier. But even the little spray bottles are fine. If you do use a nondescript spray bottle, you should be putting the label on those spray bottles and a little bit of information about the chemicals that are being used. And color coding, whether it's a microfiber cloth, whether it's a cutting board, whether it's a spray bottle, color coding your spray bottles can be very, very helpful in your operation as well, and making sure your staff are trained. This is, look, I think electronic mister, or it could be an electrostatic fogger. But these are becoming very, very popular now, these small little bombas or foggers. Some of them are misters. There's a difference between an electrostatic fogger and a fogger or a mister. But you know, these are available now in Belize. And Dr. Martinez, are you here? Dr. Ricardo Martinez, I have known for over 30 years. He is a pediatrician. He is also the owner of Best Medical Supplies. He has represented 3M in Belize very long time. And I can remember years ago him bugging me and telling me, Jim, we've got to use these supplies, got to use these supplies. And you know what Creoles say, Dr. Martinez, bam sede. I should have been using these supplies way back when, but I know the Radisson already is using them now. And I listed your contact information there. You'll see the Belize City number. And then I think Ivan and Matios still work with you.
They do.
Yes. So these are some of the reps who are working out in the district for Best Medical Supplies and the products that are being offered. And Dr. Martinez, the next slide is a list of some of those products. I know you're very passionate. You're well learned when it comes to disinfecting and cleaning. And was there anything in my presentation that jumped out to you that you'd like to impart on the group?
Well, if you allow me, I would like to start with the hand washing, or the use of the sanitizers or hand disinfectants. You must use it, you must friction for 20 seconds. If you friction for 15, if you friction for 10, or you just apply, you don't get the effect of reducing the germ count on the hand. You need to keep in mind that the average amount of germs that we have per cubic centimeter on the palm of the hand is anywhere between 400 to 500,000 colonies on the hand. And if you have fingernails, it's 1.2 million. So in your industry, it's recommendable not to have fingernails and not to use nail polish or gels on the nails. The nails must be flush with the finger. Now, the hand rubbing or the frictioning effect must go through the 8 or 10 stages that's recommended so that you can get the absolute effect that you're using, that you're looking for. The other thing that's equally important is that the body fats that are produced on the palms of the hand or over our body have antiviral and have antibacterial effects. So effectively, every time we bathe to keep clean and smell clean, we remove this natural protection we have, which also applies to the palm of the hand. But where the hand is concerned, 60% of that body oil takes 5 days to regenerate itself. So one of the recommendations is that you need to use a hand disinfectant with a certified moisturizer, or you need to immediately add moisturization to the hand after you do hand washing, or you use a product that does not have a moisturizer. Now, what also people need to keep in mind is that 30 years ago, we used to say that allergies were developed within the gastrointestinal tract, and that continues to be true. But we now know that dry hands facilitate the development of allergies. So if you work in an industry where you're not using gloves, you're exposed to hand washing, you're using acetic products, you're using fertilizers, you're using pesticides, and you're not protecting your hand, you eventually develop allergies to other food and other products that you did not have an allergy to. So again, you need to keep in mind the use of gloves or moisturization. And if you're going to use gloves, they have to be latex-free gloves because that is the recommendation today. With respect to what I remember you saying, in 2014, the CDC wrote a general letter to everybody concerned with the production of phenolic compounds and phosphate compounds and prohibit them for use in the United States because they belong to the group of persistent pollutants, environmental pollutants, or what you call POPs. So they should not, they are no longer produced in the US, and they're no longer recommended for use because of the damage they do to the environment. So they're completely out.
Which chemicals are those? Which one?
Anything that has phenol and anything that has in phosphate since 2014 has been banned by the CDC.
Interesting.
So buying a product that has in phenol or has in phosphate, that's certainly not made in the US and not made in Canada. That is somewhere else.
Okay.
If you can go back to that slide that you had alcohol and phenolics and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Let's go back. Right there. Is that the one?
No, I think it's the previous one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw you pass it, Jim. The EPA last advice about a month ago is that they have not tested foggers, fumigation, drones as methods of applying disinfectants. So they advise that at least achieving what you believe you're achieving. With respect to the hypochlorites or to the bleaches, what you said is completely true.
Yeah.
One of the things we also need to have a wide range capacity of killing.
You're breaking up a little bit. We just lost you, Dr. Martinez. If you can hear me, we've lost you, Dr. Martinez. Are you going to log in there again? If you can hear me, you may want to try and log in again. Just use that same icon for logging in. when we get Dr. Martinez back, I'm going to let him speak more on this, but there are several products that they bring in. And even though I haven't gotten around a lot, some of the properties that I have been at, I have seen quite a few of his products. But the 40L cleaner disinfectant, it's been widely used, and there are a lot of disinfecting applications for that. The neutral cleaner, the hand sanitizer and food sanitizer. I've seen a lot of places around the country with the, I think, motion sensor hand sanitizer, and it says 3M on it. If you look down the list, I've seen the twist and fill joint commission certified canisters. The twist and fill is just a technology they use to put it on a machine or a little mechanical device, and then it pre-mixes with the water automatic when you dispense the chemical. You just adjust it to what it is, and the instructions are right on the bottle. It's a very interesting technology because it's very easy to use and difficult to make mistakes. But if you've got 3 different kinds of chemicals, you could use the same mixer applicator with the twist and fill mechanism. And of course, you can put it back on the shelf. Dr. Martinez, are you back with us? I guess not. So the technology with this, now, if you go to the supplier list that's in the gold standard report, you will see best medical supplies there and the same contact information for these supplies. These are on the high end of listed supplies. It says Best Medical Supplies, that's the name of his company, but these type of chemicals, this quality of chemical are widely used. Our SOPs for some of the big branded hotels. I know the Biltmore Plaza uses the 3M products, as does the Radisson. And other brands are kind of signing in. I'm not sure about Marriott or the Hilton brands yet, but these are widely used and now standard for some of those companies. Dr. Martinez, you're back. I was just bragging about some of your chemicals there. Let's go back. Yeah, let's go back to that slide right there. And you were talking about. Go ahead. Are you still there, Dr. Martinez? I can't hear you. I can see you. I can't hear you. BTB, make sure he's not muted. Thank you very much. Can't hear you, Dr. Martinez. I'm not sure what our problem is there. But again, moving forward, this is the list right here that I frequently talk about. And if you can see my cursor, I have the cursor on his contact information. There are, William Usher has been in the webinars in the past. Luis Garcia from Eco-Friendly has. I can't remember if Mr. Campos, yeah, Mr. Campos was in one of our other previous webinars. And then I've used the products from Chemical Specialities before as well, Rafael Gongora. I do know that when the pandemic first started, there were some US disinfectants that were not allowed to be shipped. Brody's brought in a British-based products that were had European approval on them. I'm really sorry. I don't know much about the products. I've not used them before, but they do have some new products. And if you know Brody's, they always have a agricultural and chemical wing of their stores. But otherwise, those are I'm most familiar with. And again, Dr. Martinez has a team that Matias and Ivan Castillo. So those are all pretty current. I'm going to touch a little bit on terminal cleaning, and these are just highlights for terminal cleaning. Remember earlier on, I talked about, what do you do when someone has been isolated in a room with COVID-19? Obviously, you're not going to do any cleaning when the guest is there and being quarantined. You will wait till the end of their stay when they've tested negative, public health has released them. But whether you use a third party or you train your staff on terminal cleaning, the first thing you need to do is assess the equipment as well as the proper PPEs. Now, keep in mind that a lot of the branded hotels, you've probably seen them advertise that they don't use a room 72 hours after anyone has checked out. Are you back, Dr. Martinez?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, good. Let me go back to this slide. Right there.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I was saying that whether you use soap or whether you use an alcohol-based, you need to moisturize your hands because dry hands facilitate greater germ growth, but it also facilitates the development of allergies, food allergies, even though it goes through your hands. Now, in terms of the hypochlorites and the hydrogen peroxides and the peracetic acid, they're all under the category of oxidizers, and oxidizers do cause corrosion. But what is also important to put that in practice, we know over the many years that when you use Clorox, it eats away or it takes away the shine of the tile or the shine of the Clorox of the linoleum or of the Congolium now, or of the paint and varnish. Now, we paint and we varnish for beauty, but what we didn't know that we were doing is that we were creating a very smooth surface to which germs cannot adhere. So the germ would stay on the surface and the breeze would blow it along. But as we wipe down with these oxidizers, it eats away at the paint and at the varnish. What that then does, it facilitates the surface for germ adherence and germ replication and germ multiplication. And the other thing we need to keep in mind is that we did not know that germs and mildew or mold talk together. So that creates a combination of what we call biofilm. And that biofilm floats at night. And that is why the night air and the early morning air tends to affect patients that have allergies or pulmonary conditions. The other thing you need to keep in mind that we didn't know until 2014, this is relatively new information, is that the direct application of oxidizing disinfectants to a surface doesn't really achieve what you thought it was achieving. Meaning to say that if you want these oxidizing disinfectants to exert their action, you need to clean the surface down with soap and water so that you can remove the film of humidity that covers those walls and then allow the disinfectant to go in whichever of the three disinfectants that you use, whether it is bleach, whether it's peracetic acid, or whether it's hydrogen peroxide. So today, the modern disinfectants bring in what you call surfactants, so that one application to the surface opens up that layer of covering and then allows the disinfectant to go in, and you no longer need to rinse.
Excellent.
That's the comment I would like to make on this. Then the other comment I would like to make on the last slide that I showed you is that the EPA has not authorized fogging, fumigation, air purifiers, and drones as a method of getting disinfectants out because they have not been tested to be effective. Yeah, so based on the slides that I show, that is what I would want to add and re-emphasize what you said about bleach, no?
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very helpful, very informative as well. You want me to scroll back down.
Right.
You brought up the subject. You brought up the subject of hand sanitizers, and I know you have one, and I think your hand sanitizer has some type of hand moisturizer built into it.
Yes, that moisturizer that's built into it comes certified by the US FDA, and it comes certified with what is defined as an NDA, which means to say that that has been tested from the inception right down to its use. And what it does, it increases moisturization of the hand by 25%. So it is indeed a true moisturizer because it does penetrate the stratum of the skin. Unlike traditional moisturizer, oh, and by the way, it contains all anti-allergic substances. I'll give you an example. Parabens, I'm changing the subject a little bit just to get my idea across. Parabens is related to breast cancer, and parabens should not be found in products today. Yet in many over-the-counter products, you do find parabens. The other day, for example, I was reading an anti-allergic cream for face, and it had in acetic acid, aspirin, which is a no. So I think one of the things people need to do is read a little bit more to create an awareness so that even in the personal things that they buy for themselves, they're buying exactly what the label says. And you said something a while ago, Jim, that's very important. Had it not been for the US CDC and the US EPA, we would have never found that hand product that the Mexicans were selling had in methanol. And methanol is a direct cause of liver cirrhosis, which can lead to liver cancer. So had they not tested that, the world would have continued using it, and everybody would have taken for granted that it was ethyl alcohol when it was methanol.
Right, right.
Which brings me back to the topic that you also emphasize. You have to make sure that your certifying institutions are credible institutions, that when they give you their word that it has been tested and proven, you can take that as the gospel truth. You just can't. I think I should remind the public that there was some time back that we were getting to peace that was coming from continental China, and it had Freon in it. The Ministry of Health picked up on that thing and they banned it. So these are the things that we have to keep in mind. And certainly over the last 6 years, cleaning and disinfecting has taken a new focus, especially in health, because in 2005, they found a germ in a tilapia farm in Communist China that was resistant to all known antibiotics to man. And in 2014, that same germ was found in the urine of a pregnant young lady out of Pennsylvania who had never left the state of Pennsylvania, who, after being found to have a urinary tract by this germ, developed a blood infection to this germ, what we call septicemia, and she died. And that then alerted the President of the United States, Obama, to bring all the experts in the world. And this is why we know so much more today about cleaning and disinfecting, and it's not something to be taken lightly, simply because wherever you are sitting and wherever I am sitting and wherever all the attendees are sitting, if proper disinfectant is not done, whatever I left on the table or on the chair when I get up will live for 2 more years. So whoever comes and sits there can pick it up. So cleaning and disinfecting is not it's not like we used to think before, it's an insignificant job. No, it's critical for the quality of surgery that a doctor performs. So people in the hotel industry will understand that they really need to involve themselves more and really critically monitoring so that the industry can grow and be successful. So that the clients can get a sense that there is a huge emphasis being done and monitoring being done, supervision being done, quality controls being done where cleaning and disinfecting is concerned.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Doc, if I could take a step backwards, the product with the hand sanitizer, and that's the Avogard D on your list down here?
Yes, that is the Avogard D, yeah.
Okay. And then the Avogard CHG with moisturizer, what is that used for?
That is one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that when the pandemic started, the US EPA created an N list. And that N list was based on the fact that those products were found to kill rhinovirus, norovirus, and the corona family of viruses, and SARS-CoV-1. And they said, if your disinfectant was proven to kill this, we give you the authority to say that it kills SARS-CoV-2. Since the beginning of July, the US EPA and the US CDC have been individually testing the disinfectants that apply for such certification to say, you know what, we've tested you and we found that you kill either MERS, SARS-1, or SARS-2. Now, in the case of the Avogard CHG, it was a product that was initially used in operating theater, whereby it gives you an immediate disinfection within 15 seconds, and it gives you a continuous hand disinfection for 6 hours with moisturization. And if you use it for 11 consecutive times, the 12th application gives you 24 hours protection. That protection is based on the fact that the product, the Avogard CHG, penetrates 1/3 of the thickness of the first layer of the skin that is known as the stratum. But what is also interesting about this product is that independent studies have found it to be effective against MERS. MERS, as you know, belongs to the same family as SARS-CoV-1, so it is now certified to be effective against SARS-CoV-2. And that's the advantage that it brings you. So, in essence, once you apply this properly, following the steps of WHO, there is no need to use a glove. And it's food compatible. So there's no need to now, the only problem that you would want to use a glove for is that you would not want to transfer the allergens from pork or beef or seafood to the other products to create allergies. So you would certainly need gloves in the kitchen. So that would be there, Jim.
I think that's very interesting. From a disinfecting standpoint, one of the chemicals that I've noticed, or disinfectants, we always hate that term chemical, but it is chemical, right? But the disinfectant that's used is that 5L, 40L cleaner disinfectant. Is that the product that is widely used in both the medical and hospitality area?
Not only that, both of them were certified on the 22nd of July by the US CDC and the US EPA to effectively kill COVID-19. So up to the 21st of July, they were on the N list. They applied to be tested, and they are now certified to be effective against SARS-CoV-2, because remember that COVID-19 is the name of the disease.
Right.
And AIDS, HIV is SARS-CoV-2. So the name of the germ is SARS-CoV-2, and COVID-19 is the disease. So it has been certified for that, and now the IATA, the International Air Transport Agency, along with the FAA out of the United States, recommends it for disinfection of air carriers. What I also need to add is that if a disinfectant says that it is for non-porous surfaces, you cannot assume that it is for porous surfaces. The label has got to tell you that it is for porous surfaces. So
Okay.
the other thing is that this is one application and it does not need rinse. The difference between 40L and 5L is that 40L kills in 3 minutes, 5L kills in 10 minutes. That's the other advantage it gives to you. And water-based. All these products are water-based. So they're all OSHA compliant. And they also bring another thing that's very important to know. They are VOC certified. In the old days when I was a child growing up, if it doesn't smell, it's not clean. Well, now we know that the primary cause of asthma or the primary trigger of asthma is smell. So since 2015 to 2016, smell is now regulated in the United States because the US federal government spends $2.5 billion in asthma and the budget has not increased. So
I know that.
Smell is now regulated. So you will find out that all products that are FDA or CDC or EPA or Joint Commission certified all comes with a minimum smell compared to what I grew up with, that if you don't smell, you know pee.
Right, right. In saying that, I did stress upon the proper use of chemicals, and when you were you kind of blanked out there, and I think you had to log back in. I'm familiar with the twist and fill mechanical mechanism of your products. Are you offering the twist and fill mixers mechanisms along with the products?
Yes, we do. One of the interesting things with the twist and fill, it is that it is Joint Commission certified. What that means to say that for us that are in health, Joint Commission certification is far and above CDC and FDA. It's more demanding to satisfy them in terms of their recognition. And this product is Joint Commission certified, meaning to say that what it states, they stand by. So with the use of this diluter, you only need one diluter for all of the products that we have. Secondly, it doesn't consume energy. Thirdly, it doesn't depend on water pressure, it just depends on water flow. And finally, it doesn't have a backup system. So you don't need to do anything to that diluter. So then it satisfies the definition of sustainability because it doesn't need water pressure, so it does not use more water than it needs. It doesn't use electricity, and it's very compact. And it guarantees you the dilution that you are supposed to get. So you don't need to do anything. And when the independent studies show you that when you compare this particular diluter with 6 other diluters, this stands out beyond what the other 6 offer. Now, what I would like also to say is that anything that 3M produces is backed by science. It's all been proven and tested both by 3M and independently.
Excellent. I think it's so important for the safety when mixing and bottling the products, and I really like that technology. Doc, I know time will quickly creep up on us, but you have so many products here: the neutral cleaner, the food degreaser, which is so important for us in food and beverage, food sanitizer, glass cleaners, industrial degreasers for our hoods and stuff like that. You also have gloves, and I noticed that the gloves have aloe and oats in them. And does that go back to what you were talking about when we're continuously washing and sanitizing our hands, and those gloves could be like a treatment for our hands?
That is correct. They're both recommended for moisturization of the hands, and they're both, when you talk about gloves, the certification is EN, and they're both recommended by EN to moisturize, but where the oats goes It's also certified by the Association of Skin Diseases of the United States in terms of what they support in terms of moisturization. The answer is yes. Another very important thing that people need to keep aware about E&M is that it tests, one, for pinholes, and it also tests for germ penetrability. Now, what that means to say that the standard of the FDA for gloves production is that it has 2.5 pinholes in each glove for every 1,000 produced. But the individual companies, if they have EN certification, are only allowing the gloves to have 0.68 pinholes, 4 times less than what the FDA is requiring. And the other important feature about EN certification is that it has been tested against penetrability by hepatitis B. And the reason why hepatitis B is because even though the poliovirus is 10,000 times smaller than hepatitis B, well, polio is not around. So to date, having said that, hepatitis B is considered the smallest virus known to man because it's 27 nanometers big. It doesn't penetrate the glove. And it's latex-free. So there is no possibility of transmitting latex to the food, to the plate, that later on the patient with allergies can eat and develop itchy tongue, swollen tongue, itchy lips, swollen lips, etc.
Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Now, these other products, and then at the bottom, you noticed the pads and the microfiber cloths and fiber mops, and you have all of these products in country?
Well, I have all the pads on that. What I really don't have, and I would like to explain, is that when COVID-19 started, President Trump put a ban on the exports until the 31st of August. And he renewed that ban now until the 31st of December. And what he recently did, he invoked the Korean Defense Act, for which he was widely criticized because he wanted to ban all exports to the Caribbean and Latin America and Canada, that products that deal with operating theater, infection prevention, etc. So where the gloves are, I don't have any more from the ending of August, and I don't know when I will get. The other products I have, and the remaining products that I don't have will come in, because what has happened is that President Trump has had to agree to release 10% of what is being produced in the US to allow countries like Canada, the Caribbean and Latin America to continue to survive, because it would be morally wrong. He was even criticized by the United Nations. So he has eased up on 10%.
Okay. How about the nitrile gloves?
No, I don't have any gloves, but I do have the Neutrocleaner, the degreaser, the sanitizer, the glass, the industrial, the steel, the Avogard CHT, the pads, the cloths, and the twist and fill is coming in within 2 weeks' time, because again, the requirement at customs is much more rigid to ensure that you're not exporting more than you should.
Yeah. That's great. Doc, I want to keep you on again, because a big part of these presentations are the questions and answers at the end. I can't see the chat board right now, but there's a huge chat board on the side, and we're gonna move through a couple more slides, and then we'll go to the chat room, and BTB will probably have organized some questions, and I would like to utilize your expertise, and you can help me answer some of these questions that could be written down. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, good. As I had mentioned here, in the gold standard guide, you will see at the top, best medical supplies are on the recommended suppliers for disinfectants, cleaners, hand sanitizers. So you can get a hold of Dr. Martinez and his team, Matias, and Ivan, right there, it's in the guide at the end. I'm gonna skip through the terminal cleaning. That's kind of lengthy in its own. Remind everybody, tomorrow, Thursday, we've got 2 presentations back to back. The housekeeping, food and beverage, and front of house in the morning. And then very, very important, especially for those people who have already seen these presentations, the safe corridor will be very interesting for everybody. And again, I'll be sharing time with the legal team of BTB, Mr. Bradley, Daryl Bradley. And then, of course, Friday, the enhanced cleaning and safety procedures for tour operators. So let me move through. Thank you guys for checking in. I'm gonna quit my shared screen. And there's Dr. Martinez in full force. We've got a question here. Can we just not use bleach? Hold on. Yeah, someone has asked, William, can we just not use bleach or as our main disinfectant? He's kind of asking.
Well, the answer is that remember that if you use bleach, it does kill, but you have to know if the bleach that you're getting is effective, because after 4 months it starts losing potency, especially if it's exposed to sunlight when it is on the shelf, because ideally bleach should be maintained at 25 degrees centigrade, and that doesn't really happen. And the other thing is that you don't know at what percentage the bleach is, because local bleach doesn't tell you that. So, and finally, remember that bleach is corrosive, based on the explanation that I gave, no? And
Right.
once you dilute bleach for 24 hours, the diluted bleach is no longer effective.
Right, exactly. Dr. Martinez, I'm not sure if you're seeing the chats, but I'm just going to read this question. Somebody had asked, can a isopropyl alcohol mixed with aloe vera, I'm assuming that's a homemade mixture, used as a hand disinfectant? So
the first thing we need to keep in mind is that we didn't know that when you buy isopropyl alcohol and you open it once and you seal it back, it loses its potency after 30 days. Everything that I'm saying here is really from 2014, 2015 to now. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that ethyl alcohol or ethanol is far more effective in its action against the wide variety of viruses that are out there, whilst isopropyl alcohol does not have the same coverage against viruses as ethyl alcohol has, which is the reason why it's best to use ethyl alcohol-based hand sanitizers or hand disinfectants. And certainly aloe vera is a moisturizer, so in principle, the idea is good.
Right. Someone has asked this question. It's geared towards me, but somebody wants just simple recommendations on standard room cleaning. Tomorrow in the housekeeping, I'll get in the sequence of cleaning a room, which would be considered industry standard. And of course, where our heightened or enhanced cleaning and sanitation is concerned. But in tomorrow's session in the morning, I'll get into that one. So if you're still with us, we will go through just some of the steps of actually cleaning a room. And then we'll do the same thing in the dining room as well. The next question, I agree with Christian. Please give an example. We'll do that tomorrow. Can we get a PowerPoint you using through email? Very important. So, Dr. Martinez, just you and I having a conversation, it looks like we have some industry people who are asking for the professional standard of cleaning a room, and can we get a PowerPoint on that? I'm not going to make up a whole PowerPoint on professional or industry standard cleaning a room. I'm going to do a short little synopsis with the added and heightened cleaning and sanitizing methods for you tomorrow. You know, hopefully it helps you tomorrow. There's certainly things that you could look up, but I will go through the sequence in cleaning a room and so forth. Here, how long those moisturizing will stay in our hands after using the hand sanitizer? Is it effect on the barrier reef? Are you still there, Dr. Martinez? I think we've lost him, but the hand sanitizers are normally alcohol-based. So there's a lot of evaporation, and I don't think the hand sanitizers are bad for the barrier reef. If they do have aloe vera or moisturizers, aloe vera is a natural plant-based, and I can't see it being harmful to the reef. I could recommend that we use or you read the label to see what the chemicals are, and you can always Google that. Google the appropriate use of or damage to the environment on those chemicals. The template that BTB sent out for tour operators states using bleach only and a designated rag. The term rag I thought was ridiculous considering the amount of training that has been offered. Those are just basic recommendations. The training kind of goes into more detail, and certainly where applicable and where your resources are available, the microfiber are always the best in our industry. And the reuse of those microfiber rags from one room to the next are not recommended when it comes to using in multiple rooms. So there's a lot of considerations, and I think we could, for cleaning a room, getting into the peculiarity or the different things to think about when cleaning a room is really important. But sanitizing your rags in between use is also very important. Dr. Martinez, you're back. There was a question about hand sanitizer and moisturizers and the effect on the environment. I kind of scrolled through that, but I had recommended, Dr. Martinez, that with hand sanitizers that have moisturizers or just plain hand moisturizers, that they should be reading the labels and seeing what type of chemicals are in those moisturizers. What could you say about an environmentally friendly moisturizer? What would you recommend?
In general principle, an eco-friendly and environmentally friendly moisturizer is one that doesn't have any latex, doesn't have any parabens, doesn't have any aspirin, doesn't have any preservatives, and doesn't have any artificial colors. I'll give you an example. All contraceptives bring a yellow color inside of it, but you don't see the yellow. But that has to do with the chemistry of the particular estrogen or progesterone that's being used. But they all look clear or white. So you have to make sure you read the label and that any of these five things are not in the moisturizer.
Thank you.
Traditionally, you would want to use brands like Neutrogena and Aveeno, which they sell here because these are brands that are traditionally associated with hypoallergenic reactions, and they're registered as hypoallergenic manufacturers in the United States or wherever they are, whether they're in Puerto Rico or in Mexico, wherever they are. So that would be another recommendation.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Bradley always recommends Neutrogena products. There was another question. Nancy, all of these webinars are recorded and can be found on the BTB website. Could we combine other disinfectant chemical products or just use that as a main disinfectant? The important thing, and maybe I needed to emphasize that, is that you're using the right disinfectant for the right application, the right surfaces, and then, of course, utilizing all the safety precautions as well. So I think if you're considering the products at Best Medical Supplies, you would want to get a good orientation from Dr. Martinez's reps on that for recommendations. Or if if you do want to utilize different types of cleaners, multi-purpose cleaners, you could mix them up. You just don't want to mix them together, right? So even though we're all speaking English here, I just want to make sure that the mixing thing is you're not mixing chemicals at all. So I'm not 100% certain on your question. Are these webinars recorded? Yes, yes, yes. No, you cannot mix chemical disinfectants. Very good. Thanks, Matt. I see Matt's on there. Right. I was kind of reading into the question from the individual. Matt kind of said something there. Great. What is the email address to request a price list? Matt, if you're still with us, why don't you put in your contact information and email, please? What is the email address? Is the Maxima 556 the Best Medical Supply sells SARS-CoV-2? Do you know about the Maxima 256?
Yes. Yes, the Maxima 256 continues to be on the Enlist, and I had explained that the Enlist was created by the US EPA and the CDC, and the Enlist includes all those disinfectants that kill rhinovirus, norovirus, the coronavirus, set of family viruses. But unlike the 5L and the 40L, it has not been specifically tested for SARS-CoV-2. But it's still recommended on the Enlist, which brings me to another topic. I don't know if you remember that there was a cruise ship that was not allowed to land in Jamaica about 2 years ago. And the reason for that was that they found that the people that had vomiting and diarrhea on that cruise ship was because of norovirus. Bleach does not kill norovirus.
Okay. With respect to not being approved for coronavirus, it is approved for other envelope viruses.
That is correct. That is why it's still on the Enlist, which is the list that you can continue to use disinfectants from, and you would be scientifically justified to use it based on the EPA and the CDC. Except that I said as of July now, you can apply to get your particular disinfectant on the Enlist tested against SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah, Dr. Martinez, we have an adventure guide who I know very well. They use a lot of helmets and stuff like that. And the question is related to how user-friendly. So when we're mixing some of these disinfectants that you have, and of course other suppliers have, they could be mixed in a liter spray bottle, which could be applied quite easily to helmets and rope gear and harnesses and stuff like that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So basically, Gonzalo, anybody with gear like Gonzalo's explaining, you could pre-mix those things safely as recommended, and have your spray bottles with you, and you could disinfect after use, and put your gear inside the back of the vehicle. And of course, that time factor of the disinfectant having an effect could work out really well. Someone wanted me to go into how to disinfect a toilet. I think the important thing is making sure you first clean any type of matter that could be on the toilet first, and then of course spraying your disinfectant, letting it sit for a while before you wipe it down with the appropriate microfiber cloth. And I believe, Dr. Martinez, your microfiber cloths are color coded, and for a toilet, you'd probably be using a red cloth.
Well, our microfiber cloth are hospital grade microfiber cloths, and red is the color indicated for bathrooms. That's correct.
And someone asked me to say the difference between sanitizing and disinfecting, and my knowledge of that, Dr. Martinez, is that to sanitize, technically, you may only be killing 99% of the microbial pathogen, whereas a disinfecting would be closer to 100%.
Well, the scientific difference is that a disinfectant kills 1 million microorganisms per colony forming unit, and a sanitizer kills anywhere between 400 to 500,000. That's the difference. So people play with words, and how do you know if a product is indeed a disinfectant? Because it will have 99.59. So that tells you that it kills 6 logs, which is 1 million. Whereas a sanitizer will tell you, well, I kill 98%, or I kill 99.2, or they will tell you I kill 99.59, and later on when you continue reading the literature, they don't maintain that number, but they maintain 99.2 and that sort of a thing. So, and they interchange the word sanitize with disinfect, which is not the same thing. So you should really strive to disinfect.
Right. Dr. Martinez, somebody had asked that you repeat those chemicals that we were talking about that are no longer U.S. Preferred, or they're banned chemicals. What were those chemicals again?
Anything that has in phenol and anything that has in phosphates.
Okay, phosphate. Now,
the reason for that is that when they go into the environment, they produce the famous big word eutrophication. In other words, when they go into the environment, they reduce the oxygen content and they facilitate more growth, and that is what kills the living microorganisms within the small or the big water pools.
Very good, very interesting. So the phenol groups of and the phosphates, you said.
That is correct.
Okay. So moving forward, Indra, okay. Thank you, Dr. Martinez. Keep updated. I don't know. Could afford it. CDC, OSHA websites are good sources. We have some really good sharing of information by our participants. The best way to disinfect. How would you recommend disinfecting a hammock?
Well, that's very simple. You can do two things. You can dampen the microfiber cloth and pass it right over the hammock. And in the case of the 3 minutes, you just wait 3 minutes and you lie down. It's disinfected. And in the case of the 10 minutes, you wait 10 minutes and you lie down, because none of these products require rinsing. Now, what is also necessary to keep in mind is that in using these products, if you use the microfiber cloth wet, you're just wasting the product. You need to use the product damp. You know, it's like when parents come and they tell you, I put an extra teaspoonful of milk in the bottle of milk for the child. Well, all you did was put an overload on the kidney. You didn't really give any benefit to the child. So you don't need to put more than you need. All you need is a damp microfiber cloth. You don't need a wet microfiber cloth.
And I see Matt is helping out some of our people here, but you're saying the 5L and the 40L are good on fabrics.
Yes, they are approved for porous surfaces. So you can use it on leatherette, you can use it on upholstery, you can use it on leather, and you can use it on non-porous surfaces, granite, wood, formica, plastic. stainless steel, vinyl, etc.
Yeah, great. I'm seeing some of the conversation with Matt and Abner. The microfiber cloths are good for 500 uses.
That is correct. And you don't
And
use
how do you clean a microfiber cloth? How would I, if I had a restaurant, how would I clean my microfiber cloths?
Well, all you need to do is rinse it with warm water and it liberates everything. Or you can soak it in your food sanitizer for a minute and leave it to air dry, and it kills all your bacteria, but it doesn't kill your viruses. Now, what we need to keep in mind is this. A virus is a non-living entity that needs a host, that needs another germ that is alive for him to replicate, because he cannot replicate of himself. And that is why you need to use a disinfectant that is not only far-reaching in the quantity of different germs that it kills, but in today's world, that also kill viruses, and that specifically kills SARS-CoV-2. So if you are killing, for example, all the known germs to man, the virus doesn't have a host, somebody on who it can jump on to follow its instructions, because the virus of itself cannot replicate itself. He needs somebody else, and that somebody else are bacteria. So you need a disinfectant that effectively kills these different bacteria. And in today's world, we now have these disinfectants that also kill viruses. And one of the things that we need to keep in mind, Jim, is that there are suggestions in the world that with continuous deforestation, we will be confronting these challenges every 5 years. Because what is hidden in those forests will start to find their way out to us humans. So taking care of the environment is fundamental for survival. I mean, people say that and we laugh. But a very good example of that is this same SARS-CoV-2 that is explained by the fact of deforestation.
Yes, I was just looking at a conversation with Matt, and somebody had obviously, you know, I didn't catch everything, but somebody was advocating for steaming. I know that that is a form of disinfecting in some industries. Matt mentions that when you steam, you obviously make these fogged droplets moving around the room, and some of these pathogens could be going for a little ride and then displace themselves throughout an environment. What can you say to that?
Well, what I would add to that is that steaming is certainly probably the best way to go because it's chemical free. But you need to steam at 175 degrees. Where will we get 175 degrees, Jim?
Say that again.
Steaming is probably the best way to disinfect because it's chemical free. It's water based. But for you to effectively steam and kill, you need to have 175 degrees.
Right.
You're going to burn up yourself and burn up what's inside your building?
Yeah, yeah, it's unrealistic.
Right. Even probably the best way to disinfect.
Right. With the L5, L40, or 5L and 40L, are they environmentally friendly?
Well, they are water-based. They have a pH of 8, and OSHA certifies them as being non-hazardous.
Okay. Excellent. Well, we've had some really good feedback, Dr. Martinez.
Oh, thanks.
I really want to thank you, and Matt and Abner have been real helpful. That was quite savvy to have them on as well, because it's very difficult when you're having a conversation to answer every question. And Matt did a super job there in backing up.
I just wanted to add that the N95 and the KN95 are not the same thing. The N95 is the US product and the KN95 is the Chinese product. And if people review the news, about 4 months ago, both the US federal government and the Canadian federal government bought in excess of 3 million KN95s, and they returned them because they did not stand up to scrutiny. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful.
And you're speaking of the masks that are on the market.
Right, right, that is correct. You see, when a product is made in China for the US market, it has to stand up to US scrutiny.
Right.
But you go and you buy from the Chinese market, there is no scrutiny by any credible institution. And proof of the pudding is the 3 million and odd masks that was bought both by the US and the Canadian government that was returned to China. That happened about 4.5 months ago. And that 3M has increased its capacity to produce masks to 100 million masks per month.
Now, I have some masks here. Disposable medical masks, not sterile. You can see this, Dr. Martinez.
Well,
these are the basic medical masks.
Well, I would tell you that if you're using the run-of-the-mill surgical masks, you're getting value for money. Because all surgical masks today in the world are tested to make sure that anything that is smaller than 10 microns doesn't go through a mask. So you're getting value for money, but when you get a KN95, you're not sure what you're getting. And secondly, I don't know what it might be costing, but I imagine it's costing a good penny.
Right. I have another, this is a Chinese product, but it does have an FDA class registration.
Well,
and
Jim, is go and look up if that registration number is original.
Right.
That is how you are going to prove if that indeed is true.
It has an English FFP. I know the English classifications are FFP classifications. This one is FFP2. But you're right. I'll look these up just to see.
You know,
who the body that should be regulating what we're importing, kind of like what Dr. Manzanero had released about the hand sanitizers.
Well, you know, the world has just gotten complicated. Let me share this with you. About 3 months ago, the English government bought 2 million surgical gowns, level 3 from Turkey. And they returned them back to Turkey because it did not stand up to scrutiny. And so what I'm saying, Jim, is that we need to individually start to research these things, because government, even though government has increased in size, we are still not able to handle these things. We have a Bureau of Standards, which is good. But in reality, the task is a small one, and you need very competent people to handle these things. So everyone that is in the hospitality industry needs to understand that they need also to take their responsibility and have their people in charge of quality, in charge of food safety, to really start doing their work. Because if we don't take a self-awareness and a self-responsibility, then we won't be going far as we should. And in reality, the tourism industry in this country is very important and vital to its survival. And though the BTB is doing its part, each owner needs to hold responsible their different managers, and on a weekly basis have updates on these issues. I'll give you an example. When you go and you buy Lysol, you buy 3 things. You either buy bleach, you either buy triclosan, or you either buy benzalkonium. And up to 2014, benzalkonium and triclosan were hailed as excellent by US CDC and EPA. today triclosan and benzalkonium are in the trash can. And yet these things continue to come in because they're over the counter.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody, Jerry Larder had the FFP classification is it's not English, it's European. Yeah, I apologize, Jerry. I get all of those numbers and letters kind of mixed up. But Jerry is sharing with us that the FFP3 exceeds the N100, obviously the N95 as well. But that good information that you shared there, Jerry. Thank you for doing that. There are different classification letters and numbers from different countries. And yeah, I would certainly trust the European Union for their standards, as I would the British and EPA and FDA. I'm going to look these up. I'm going to look these masks up right here. But again, it says, what was it again? FFP2. So yeah, I'm going to look this up. Thank you very much, Jerry. But Dr. Martinez, there was a listener, and I think he takes care of one of the
this, right? You know that at triclosan and benzalkonium, there is enough evidence to suggest that they negatively affect the immune system, they affect reproductivity, they affect hormonal execution, and they affect resistance to antimicrobials. And yet, we continue to get Lysol. The other thing is that if you read Lysol clearly, it tells you that to be effective, you have to wet the surface. You know how much Lysol you're going to have to use?
Yeah.
So we need to assume a bit of personal responsibility and start to reading a little bit more.
Yeah, Dr. Martinez, I think you need to take issue with Carla Juan. She's one of our listeners, and she referred to you as an old timer with great, with good brains, because it's always about checking the numbers. And I just want to tell Carla, I've known you a long time, and you're not an old timer. You're just getting warmed up.
I will tell you something, that people in our age group, based on life expectancy, should be living in very good conditions until we're 80. People that are 45, 50 and less should be living until they're 90. And our children, our grandchildren, Jim, should be living until they're 100. You know that? That's a projection.
Yes, I follow a geneticist from Harvard named Dr. Sinclair. His specialty is longevity. Right,
that fellow is an excellent authority.
Yeah, he's very interesting. He's in his 50s, and but he does take some of his own products, but it's all about lifestyle and of course the advancement of technology and medicine. But he is saying that in the future we'll have more people living to be 120.
Just to add to this, Dr. Sinclair, CT scan done of his brain shows that he has the brain of a fellow that's 30 years old. So people really need to follow him.
Well, he's got a younger brother who's fully gray, and Dr. Sinclair still has his brunette color in his hair, and he's in his 50s.
Yeah,
I still have my blonde hair. Someone tried to call it gray the other day, but it was blonde when I was 10, and it's blonde when I'm 58. So we're just getting warmed up, Doc.
Right. Thanks for that. And hello, Carla. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah. Well, listen, again, I would like to thank you very much for sharing your expertise. I'd like to thank Matt for joining us and participating in the discussion on the chat. I'd like to also thank the BTB staff for helping out with all the links that they've been posting to help all of us move forward through this COVID-19 period, and establishing our reopening with new standards that are not only going to be good for our visitors, but really be good for us as a community. And if we adopt these principles, some of them as basic as they are, if we consistently adopt these principles at home in our communities, we are going to be so much better off in combating COVID-19 or the incidence of COVID-19. Of course, we need to take all of the precautions that we talk about with our visitors and our family and friends who are coming home. But let's make sure we trust the science. Don't just settle on idle recommendations. Read up on products, the chemicals, safety first, safety first, safety first. And execution and consistency with everything that we do. But Dr. Martinez, thank you very much. We're not shaking hands for a while yet, but maybe someday again. But on behalf of BTB and the Gold Standard webinars, thank you for being our guest. And I thank everybody for the great participation. We had over 700 people in the class today, Dr. Martinez. And,
wonderful.
Very fruitful, very interesting. Tomorrow I'll get into a little bit more of the details with this cleaning, the foundation of this cleaning and disinfecting, and then some of the technical aspects of front of house, food and beverage, and in housekeeping. So thanks again.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Jim, and thanks for the BTB for asking me to participate. And knowledge was made to pass on, so it always feels good to share knowledge. Good to see you. May everybody have a wonderful day.
Yes.
Thanks.
God bless you, Belize. You take care. Good luck to everybody. And thanks for all the shared input by everybody. It was a really good morning session. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.